This guy single-handedly carried this. Well, actually, I love it, but I also hate it. Now, today we are going to talk about the sequencer, or more precisely, the sequence basic tools in Planet Coaster 2. And with that, let's go over to my behemoth of a dark ride I have created over the last couple months. And this is by far the craziest project I have done in terms of all these kind of, trigger effects and so on. I can just briefly show you how many we have. So if I click on the trigger sequence, you can see the list is almost full. 50 is the maximum. We went to 49. Well, I could have just put one in just if I wanted to, but I managed because I just kind of put certain together. Now, there was a problem because I didn't know that 50 is the limit, so I went on very much at the beginning not caring at all about how many I put down, which ended up me being halfway through already at 50, so I needed to bring them all together. While I was doing this, I was noticing quite a lot of hiccups and issues we have with the sequencer in Planet Coaster 2. But just if you are new to this thing and you're like, what is this guy even talking about? Let's quickly talk about what this thing actually does. So in the game Planet Coaster, we have objects that have a property called triggerable. We can trigger certain objects. We can do certain things with that, putting down an animatronic, for example, over here, or a light, or a cannon, These things are animated, as you can see. They are animated, but you can control them if you place down a so-called sequencer, which is this little control panel thingy over here. You can add up to a maximum of 100 pieces per each sequencer, and that looks like this. You're gonna add objects. You can see they get a blue outline for all objects you can potentially add. You can see all in... yeah, I said it's a behemoth, okay? But yeah, you can basically add all of these. Let me see if I can select all the three. These are two. Let's just... actually, that's a little too much. There you go. These three, confirm, and you can see they are added to this kind of event sequencer area. You can obviously rename this sequencer over here. If you go and rename this thing, it's going to be test sequence. So you can see that test sequence, and you can basically play it once, and you can see all of them are playing. You can't really tell with the light because obviously you've got to put this onto nighttime. Then you can see that the light is triggered. Some lights actually have a little bit of an issue because they already glow even though they are not playing. You can see if I play it, it gets that kind of glow around it, so the light casting. But in terms of its lights itself, it just doesn't do much because it already glows. Anyways, that's not what I want to show you. The main thing I want to talk about is all the flaws and issues we have in the sequencer itself. Now, let's go in, and you can see this is how the sequencer timeline looks. Now, a couple of things are very simple. You can see this is the armillary orb, whatever. It's a cannon, okay? We're going to put this... Oh, actually, it's not. Wait, hold on. This is that thing over here. You can see when you hover over it, it's going to show you which one it is. But, again, this is one of the things. You can click on here and even zoom to that one. I wish we would even zoom closer to that, but that's just like a personal preference, because if you're further away and you're like zooming in, you don't zoom closer. I wish I would, because you can imagine if I did this over here from zooming out, it just doesn't really help me to find out. That's the first thing, but there's a lot more to it. Now, as you can tell over here, we can set a certain length it should play for. This is not possible with all the objects. Certain objects, like the cannon, for example, they have a fixed animation length because the animation is only playing for a certain time. But you can set it to various actions. You can say play on trigger, change color on trigger, which is funny because can we actually change the color of the cannon? I think we can even not. Yeah, sometimes it has options that it technically doesn't have, which is another problem in terms of consistency. But we also have the cowboy kicking heel. Now, there is a bit of a change here. So this one is kicking heel, but if we were, for example, to go to another animatronic, the newer animatronics from newer sets, for example, these are aliens, by the way. Let's say we go for the toy box set. I do know that the toy box set has it. So toy box animatronic, there you have them. This is already the Planet Coaster 2 stuff. These are brought back from Planet Coaster 1, which is a bit of an issue because they have not the new logic behind. However, the new logic in kind of addition to the old logic is again another problem, because as you can see over here we have the toy figure paramedic, and you can play this on trigger. However, the paramedic itself has a whole bunch of animatronics, animations set to it. So stop, for example, or ambient 3. You gotta play this first of all. So to understand what ambient means, you have to play it first and then kind of check out what it is. At the moment it doesn't play because we have to set it to the sequencer. So you played it once and you can see, this is the idle animation. If you want to change that, you're going to go in here and you say raise hands loops. You can just test what you want to do, which I think is a lot better, because then you can select the same piece and just say raise hands and sleep. And if we add that one to the trigger, you can see there is the other one, add this to the trigger. You now have the toy figure paramedic and the toy figure paramedic. See, there is where the problem starts. Now, what this view doesn't tell you, which is actually better with the cowboy kicking heel, it tells you what it's doing. Now, imagine this is a very simple setup of 5 animations. Now, let's go over to, for example, this one over here. Let's click in to, for example, one of these, and we go to edit trigger sequence. You can see there is obviously a lot of lights in here involved. Now, as you can see, they're all kind of, if you go through here, they're all put into like a wave animation, and I added them in a certain arrangement, which is good. But it obviously, if it's not only these things, and if it's various types of animations, if you don't know what these things are doing from the timeline, things are getting relatively complicated. So with knowing that this is the cowboy kicking heel, this is good, but now you can't do. So what you would need to do, and I think this is terrible, it should actually, the game should add the animation to its name, at least when you add this to the sequencer. Because what you would need to do is call this thing raise hands. You can't even do toy figure, say raise hands. Let's see if that fits. Raise hands, and then this one over here is doing sleep. So you say toy figure sleep. And now, if we go back to the sequencer, you can see now you get the information, but you have to work for it yourself, which I think is kind of terrible. Now, again, this one does not have a length you can set the animation for, which ends up a bit of an issue because, well, the thing is, you now have this entire sequence over here, and the longest piece defines how long the animation of your entire sequencer runs. So let's say, for example, you want to activate that light more often, then you could obviously go in and say you copy this thing, for example, over here, and then you move that over, you just copy that again, and you move that over. So the light will be actually activated a couple of times. Let's do that 3 times. You can see basically this is how it is. Let's go quickly back to nighttime so you can see what that means. And now let's play. Whoops. Hit. There you go. Now let's go to this thing and we're going to hit play. You can see light on, light off, light on, light off, light on, and so on. You get the idea, okay? Again, it all works, but it's a little bit terrible to figure out what you're actually doing. So it would be nice to just have the option to kind of click on the piece and say play a certain amount of instances with a pause off. I mean, you can do it this way, but it would be nice to do this from the panel. Now, you can obviously delete all these things. What you cannot do, and this is something I find terribly annoying, you can't just drag out the length of it. So these pieces, you could technically play longer or shorter. Imagine you could just grab them and drag them. That would be so much better. Another thing that is super annoying to do, and therefore I'm going to change to another object, let's say this one, for example, over here. This one is a wave. I wanted to make this thing start in a wave, and therefore I have increments in which it works. Don't worry about the weird settings. I just wanted to have like a bit of a nice variation in it, how it's activating. So just going to show you. There you have that. So it's kind of a, you know, a little bit of a wave, but with different parts. Now, I needed to manually kind of put these steps in. What I would love to be able is just like select multiple of those. It doesn't work, so you can't select anything multiple. You can't just hold down shift and select, let's say, these 5, for example. Let's say, you know, you can go in and you can say start at 0.3 at this point. Let's say you want to select all purple ones and make them all start at the same time. You can't do this. You can't just select multiple pieces, which I think would be so helpful to just have the option to say, everything that is purple, because you have these things, everything that is purple, step forward by 0.3, for example. That would help. So then finally, the coloration would make sense. However, as I obviously know a couple of crazy people, but most certainly I need to name one, which is Taggy3D, and I've watched a couple of videos. So obviously you can come over this issue, which I kind of learned too late in my process. So you can see there is a bit of an object here, but I have a better setup to showcase what I'm talking about. Let's quickly see where that is. It's where the patterns are. I think the patterns, there you go. This is where the patterns sit. You can see there is an arrangement of quite a lot of sequencers, and that is my main sequencer over here that is basically controlling the overall setup. So if I go back, you can see in this sequencer, there are only sequencers in here, and each individual sequencer, if we click for example on that one, holds all the different light sources in. So what I'm basically doing is I'm nesting a source of similar objects that should do the same animation in one nested event sequencer, and I'm using this nested bit just similar to how you would work in, for instance, your kind of Premiere files or After Effects or whatnot, and then you have them in here, or maybe in Blender if you do kind of node-based editing or track view kind of stuff in older kind of 3D programs, whatever. It's kind of the same idea, and if you're then in here, you have control over the entire set. So let's say if, for example, I didn't name them because this is literally just every sequencer is like one pattern asset, array of assets. So if that one over here, for example, I should just like go through and then hold on, I can easily figure out. Hopefully it's not nighttime, but if it's nighttime, you could figure out easier. You can just play that one. Okay, it's this one up here. So that's this pattern. If I ever were to say I want this pattern to be playing later, this I could say top small pattern for my, I didn't do all of that because it already sucked up too much time anyways. But if I were to go in here now into the edit, you can see one of them should be renamed. This is the top pattern small. If I like, okay, I want this to be starting later, I can obviously do so. I could either drag it or just say this. Now with dragging it, another thing is like happening. It's separated into 1 second steps. However, you can go down as much as 0.1. You can't do 0.15 as you've seen, so 0.1 seconds is the smallest increment. But why don't we have an info about that in here? So it does somehow connect to these steps, but it's very harsh to make it right, I would love to just have the option dragging it, and there is like an indication that showcases how much I'm dragging that from the basic point. So imagine we have set that here, and if I drag it out all the way here, I have a little info bubble to the left which says +1 second, which would help me tremendously in understanding where I'm putting this. Now, I'm going to show you why that matters. You can say, yeah, Rudy, you can do whatever you think, you can nest them like this and you can do this. It's all right, but why do I have to overcome an issue that could be solved by a fairly common thing, how event sequences basically work in most editing softwares? And yes, I know it's Planet Coaster 2, it's not an editing software, but we are given this power and we have this tool at hand. So these are like little tweaks that would make our life so much better. And I'm just going to search quickly for one of these areas. Where's the second launch kind of thing? There it is. It goes into, it's kind of crazy to see where these are. This is the first launch, by the way. It's not the second launch. The second launch is here. Okay, so in here, there it is. Let's go in. This sequencer 40. Sequencer 40 is crazy. If I go to 40, this is the one. You can see this thing is quite literally a behemoth. And if I drag all the way out, you can see I have, whoops, come on. Why can I not swipe over? Hello? Excuse me? I can't grab it. Hold on, that's just a little bug over here, I guess. Let's go back to 40. Because I technically, I have done this obviously to just, let's see. Okay, this is weird. I can't even, hold on. Can I just go over here? Is that like a little bug right now? I think I can't move. It's just impossible. I can't move over. Which, you see, that's another issue. Sometimes this thing is really fiddly. I never had that issue though. That's new. That's a new one, to be honest. So you can obviously, you can't really zoom in or out. You can, okay, I can't really do anything over here. I should be able to zoom in or out, but it's also not working right now. Can I do alt zoom? Yeah, okay, I can do at least alt zoom. So you can see this gives you a little bit of idea how much you can you can go down, you know. There you can see. It's making your life a little more simple if you have that option to hold down Alt and zoom. But there are like a lot of functions that are super hidden in here. I'm just still wondering, if I zoom it down, I can't still grab it. Okay, that is weird. But you can see I put out half of the other machines the other day, but at this point also I want to be able to delete all the deleted areas, you know, which I cannot. So it's really, I don't know. It's a bit of a hit or miss, as always with Frontier. This is such a powerful tool, but at the same time, it just doesn't allow you to do all the things you should be able, you would expect to do. You know, if I press on that thing, for example, over here, as I said earlier, I want to be able to just move it, you know, just like drag it longer or shorter if I have a chance to. Or if I say, you know, this one is like 6 seconds, and if I put like say at 7, I want to be able to say follow all 8 instances at the same ratio. So if I put this on 7, everything would move by the same margin. And I believe the margin over here is 0.7, if I'm not completely wrong. This should be 6, and this is 7. Oh no, actually I deleted some in between. But 7 was correct because it's double. It's like 14. It's 0.1 in difference. 0.1 is always the step we are going. And this is, by the way, I did add a lot of these sequences because I went halfway through 30 seconds of the ride I needed to do because I ran out of sequencer points, which, again, led me to making these kind of workarounds, which I figured in this kind of sequencer is more fiddly than it should be. And again, I would love to be able to just go into these things and say edit trigger sequence, now select all of them, and then give the system an, for example, increment, and then say increment each following 0.5, and then everything will be arranged 0.5 from its above current partner, or like, you know, other piece that is just in front of it. Same goes in the other direction, because this is like a thing that you would most often do. You pair that, for example, with a launch, and you want to go make the coaster go. Obviously it would be cool if you say, okay, take these and put them on a range of, let's say, 8 seconds, and then statistically put them on. And like if you have 8 seconds and 8 items, every item would be separated by 1 second. But if you've got 16 items, they will be separated by 0.5. If you've got 32, they would be by 0.25, which obviously doesn't work, but you get the point. It would be so much more helpful if all of these things, like basically what I'm saying is, do a proper editing tool, like in a proper editing for a sequencer, because again, these sequencer things are super well known. Yes, some of them have a little bit of different buttons, different hotkeys, but what they do most likely is exactly the same in all of these programs. And why I'm saying this is because we have 50% of what it takes is already in. You know, the Alt zoom is very common for Premiere and Adobe stuff. The zoom in, zoom out, the option to just drag things around. Like, there's so much in it, and I would love to see these like smaller tweaks, but they would have a giant impact in quality of life when it comes to putting on these triggers. What would also be really cool would be a typical kind of change that we would need visible. So, or visibly. I mean, if you go to the editing and you let's say you go and you edit let's say 40 was a good example actually. Let's go back into 40, because 40, there we have it. So if I zoom out and I'm just gonna go and search for some of the beat machines, let's see if we can somehow see them. Some of them should be highlighted. Beat machine, let's see if some of them would be highlighted. Okay, it's very hard to tell, but like there are a lot of these beat machines are kind of put next to the track over here. So there's one, for example. Is one of these? No, it's not. So if we go further, let's see if we can find some of these beat machines, if any of those. Like, oh yeah, there you can see this one over here. There it is. You can see the sequencers basically popping up here, so you know that these are the sequencers. What would be really nice is if we would have, like, if I hover over this, I need to have an indicator where the coaster on the track is related to the activation of this sequence. Because as you've seen, my sequencer is somewhere, like there's the track, goes all around the content, and then we have like, there is the top hat of the roll, like somewhere over there is my sequencer, but we are now like 2 or 3 curves and turns into the right, so I don't have an idea, or maybe like a ghost car of where the car now is in relation to this sequence, because either you just get rid of the limit of 50 sequencer points, because if so, you could like basically spam the whole ride with sequencing points, which I personally would find super good, because I also put another 141 over here, because at some point I was like, yeah, I can't really add more to this one beat machine thing because it already got too confusing. So I went into having one more, and you can see these sequences are most likely controlling the O, and some of the up stick that come on over here. So basically that controls the O and the 3 ups. So like these 3 are the up, and this is the advanced sequencer for the O. So I know exactly passing by here, we have this going in, the light strip glows to reveal the O, because it just is exactly the lyrics of the song at this point. And then we have like these ones hidden over here. You can see they basically up on the beat, and when the coaster comes around the corner, you can literally see it activating up. Now, again, in a setup like this, obviously you can position your camera like that and then somehow time it after the coaster. So what I did is I waited for the coaster to come, and then eventually I hit like pause, and I see when I exactly needed to put you know, the timing, which then was kind of easy to do in a frame like this. But again, if you did that for multiple seconds, how would you know where the activation point needs to be, let's say somewhere after the helix down there, which literally was one of my issues I had while doing this. So all I'm saying is you can achieve all of that, but sometimes the workaround you have to do is incredibly annoying while the solution is so close. For me personally, I think the biggest impact would be the control over the increments. Like, I really want to be able to just select all of these things, or actually just multi-select would already be a huge kind of thing. If I were to say like I want to move all of these 3 items at once over here, that would be amazing. Again, you can do this. Let's just quickly do the test to showcase what I mean. So first of all, let's get rid of all these things. I'm just going to show you a setup. Now, if I were to say we were just having these things, right? Let's put them over, and let's put a cannon over here, and let's copy this cannon a couple times, and let's copy this dude as well in here, and let's have the light as well as like a setup of 5 lights in front of it here, like this. So what you obviously can do, just for the nesting, we are going to copy this one here, this one here, this one here. Don't worry, it's just like for showcase reasons, okay? Why is this thing turned around? Let's put it here. So, and just to make it very obvious how it would work, you would say cannons, you would say, you know, cowboys, cowboys, there you go. This is obviously Lego, and these is the light bulbs. You know, that, I mean, naming these things makes your life a lot simpler and a lot easier. And then you would actually add the objects, but you don't add the objects, you basically add the sequencers over here. You know, that's what you do, because you will need these things in a bit. Say confirm. They don't do anything right now, obviously, because we haven't added them yet to it. But now you go through and you say, okay, edit and add objects, 1, 2, confirm. Then you do the same thing with this one, add the objects, confirm, and then you go in here. You get the idea, okay? You know, it's simple. 1, 2, 3, confirm. And then you do the same thing with the last one, just so we have it done completely full, like this, confirm. So now what you have is obviously you got full control over these things. Now you can say, I want to say Lego should start moving first, then quickly followed by the cowboys. And then we have the cannons, for example, shoot as the last thing. So that is the setup now, how it would be, right? We're going to stop this, and now we say yes, and you can see it just kind of worked. Now, again, what I would love to see is now the option of like, okay, this is a little bit too close to each other. I want this to be separated by at least a second. Obviously, I can go in and say, okay, 1, and then I'm going to say 2 for this one, obviously. Also, I want to rearrange this a little bit so you have my light bulbs down here. I'm like, okay, this is fine, but what now? Now I have the idea. So this is a typical process. I'm like, okay, but now I want to change the light, because I want to make these lights appear with the animations. Now, there are a couple of reasons to solve it. Either I'm like, okay, maybe I want to have this light as an addition to all the different events I have over here. So I could take these lights out of the sequencer and put it in the main object. Or I'm going in like, okay, I have a step of 2 seconds in. I've got 5 of these. What am I going to do with like over 3 seconds? Obviously, I go in here and I'm going to say, okay, how they're arranged. Oh, look at that. They're weirdly arranged. So this is the first one, starting the first, giving that next one. Is that the next one actually? Yeah, giving that like half a second. So 0.5. So next one is that in the middle, giving that one the 1 second. Hold on, you play for 2 seconds, but you start at 1 second. You obviously over here at the third one, you start at 1.5 seconds, and the last one starts at 2 seconds. You know, I've made the changes, and now if we click on the sequence over here, you can see, or basically you can't see, but technically the light is animated with it. So we're gonna stop it, show you in nighttime again. Oops, there you go. So hitting play again, you can see now. Actually, play sequence there. You plop, 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 plop. And they do basically animate just like the light plops in. You haven't really seen that one with those. And I'm like, okay, but what about if I would do the same with the cannons now, that the cannons shoot basically in the same arrangement as these things? I would need to go into the sequencer. You get the idea. It's painful because what would be cool if this game noticed that this is a trigger sequence and I want to go into that one, it gives me a little icon and I double click on that one and it would let me go into this trigger sequence as a nested object. So if the game would treat the sequencer as a nested group, which you can access from this panel over here, that would be majorly helpful. Or, opposed to that, it would be fantastic if, for example, you could go into that one and you're like, hey, these are all the same objects. How can I just select them all and create a sequencer out of these? Like, select them all, say, create sequence, and then a little sequencer pops up on your cursor that you need to place down somewhere. Like, these things would make this game so much more straightforward. And again, you got all of this stuff in already. It's all in. It's not like that I'm trying to come up with new ideas or new solutions. That is all in. It just needs to be brought together. And all of the stuff we discussed in today's video would have reduced or cut the time it took me to build this coaster by about 25%. Because the amount of time I spent on fixing the sequence to the music was not only checking that it is correct to the music, but also overcome the painful things in the game to do the timing right. It would have been so much more simple to go in with basically what I've done with the sequence number 40 again. Let's go, that's my best example actually with all of these. If we go back into 40, therefore we go. So what I've done with this sequence over here is I have actually gone in and I've counted the beats in the waveform in the music video. Like, I downloaded that music file as an MP3, put that into Premiere, and I basically have then exactly timed it to the moment where I put the sequence event on the coaster down, and from there on I have basically calculated how I needed to put down the different beat machines over here. So at some point I was like, okay, I thought it was a half-second beat, but it turned out to be 0.7 seconds when you go to the... I think it was a 0.5 beat, but for the game, I'm not sure why exactly it turned out to be a 0.7. Maybe that was also because of the arrangement. Anyways, I then went in and calculated, and obviously I went in with 39 objects, and I did manually grab them all and move them over. Like, I clicked on it and I just like calculated where I need to start. How easy would have been selecting them all and then clicking enter and saying increment 0.7, bam, 10 minutes saved. Okay, maybe not 10, but 5 minutes saved with one click. That would have been so simple, and it would be exactly what I wanted to do, exactly what I needed. Or a kind of option, I'm not sure if that obviously goes into the wishing, but it would have been awesome to have a feature to just like time it to the coaster position, but put it 1 second ahead or 1 second behind or exactly at the position. That would also help tremendously, specifically for stuff like that. We've seen like this one animates with the coaster, and again, I have tested a couple of these animation types until I found the one that matches the speed of the coaster, and then I fiddle around with the positioning, as I can show you, of the animation. At the beginning, I had the position here, just above the animation, so that it moved with it, and I had these things put further, but then I noticed now the coaster is slightly faster than the animation is, so I went with the fast animation first, but then I figured, okay, the fast animation is too fast, so I don't have that little parallax effect I wanted to go for. So it would have been so easy if I would have had a little idea to where the coaster is as a ghost car, as I said earlier, in comparison to the animation playing. That would be obviously the cherry on the cake, because that would make life so much more simple to see. Or it doesn't even need to be a ghost car. It would be lovely to see where the coaster is. Actually, I do think we have a system already in-game that does exactly this. So if we go and we're going to say add a ride photo, and we're going to say the ride photo is going to be here, and then we say continue, the coaster car spawns exactly on the position. So we do kind of have already that option, don't we? So on that note, just thinking about it, we already have it in the game, which I didn't know. So yeah, there is kind of the idea already to spawn a car to edit in while the coaster is running, while the system is running. So it does work, doesn't it? Yeah, but anyways, a bit of a long video, but I wanted to deep dive into sequences because I haven't spent so much time with the sequencer beforehand, but obviously in this project in the last couple of weeks, I have absolutely I dived deep into the sequencer. I jumped into the fresh water of sequencer editing in this game, and I can only so much more respect Mr. Taggy3D right now for what he is doing, because it's absolutely madman stuff he's doing there if he does that with all the sequences. And now I understand why all his panels look like how they look. That is not because he's just crazy and he wants to make it look crazy. It actually is to make it more simple to control, which makes sense. But again, I always come back to the same point. Why do we need to do this? Why do I need to have it so complicated when technically we have the tools to make it more simple? So, Frontier, I know you're listening. I know you have taken notes. Please, at least do a couple of those. That would be so super helpful to at least have, like, just to sum it up, you know, to get the option to multi-select pieces quickly, just to say, you know what, I'm just gonna select these 3 pieces and then move all of them together in a group. It would be so nice to have, if a group we edit, or if something we edit is a sequencer, by double tapping we can enter the sequencer just as a nested sequence. It would be lovely to give the option to things that can be adjusted in length, which obviously we can't see in that one, but if we go, for example, to the lights and we edit these ones, these lights, obviously, they have a length. How about just dragging the length? That would also help us to time things visually in this timeline. Also, naming-wise, it would be super cool to have a name addition or a tag to what animation a certain item is playing when we have a drop-down. As I know that we want to streamline this in the future, and we have seen this with the 2 DLCs at hand, items should now just be one item with multiple animations, which I believe is the way to go. It's the best idea. It's way better than having 8 objects, which are literally the same, just playing different animations. You don't need these 8 objects that just cluttering the game for no reason. But then I need an information what this is doing without me having to write it next to the name. Right. That should be it from my side. I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive into sequences. I hope, Frontier, you have taken notes, and I hope we see each other in the next video. And if you're watching this video, hopefully it's coming out on Thursday. If so, I will be live streaming tonight, potentially continuing with Big Thunder Mountain. Just because that mad project over here wasn't enough, let's dive into my other mad project. And if nothing major changed, we are going to start a little bit with some of the support work on the island, which is still not done. So if you fancy having a look there, I would love to welcome you either on Twitch or on YouTube live tonight. Until then, thank you so much for watching as always, and I would appreciate if you guys could check out Instant Gaming, sponsor of the channel. If you need any game update DLC, maybe a DLC for Planko 2 that you haven't already, you can find it there for a great discount. That would be much appreciated. Link is, as always, in the description. You can bookmark it for you. Helps me, helps you. That would be fantastic. Until then, goodbye.